So hi and welcome to the Boundary Challenge Day 7. I'm recording this one in the evening, so you might see that it looks a bit different behind me and it's dark and maybe my face is a bit too lit up. I don't think I can change that. So I'm going to be like this shadowy kind of full light and then dark behind me for this recording. So it's appropriate because today I want to talk a bit more about the shadow as I understand it in my practice as a shadow work coach, which draws from Jung's work on the shadow. I'm not going to go into that in too much detail. You may already know a bit about it. I want to talk to it briefly about how I feel it relates to boundaries and choosing boundaries in our lives. So in shadow work, we work with archetypes, and one of the ones we work with is the warrior, as I mentioned in one of the earlier videos. And the warrior part of us is a part of us that we may or may not use a lot, and we may or may not feel we use very effectively. But the warrior is the part of us that says no, that holds righteous anger, that sticks up for ourselves. And it's a part of us we really need to have good boundaries in our lives. And I wanted to just explore how it might show up if that part of you is not functioning very well for you in your life, because that could be why boundaries are a challenge for you. And just to say, boundaries are a challenge for very many people, and I think probably women in particular, but men too. This whole area is fraught for us, and in shadow work we believe that whilst we may start our lives with access to a full range of emotions, many of these get kind of cut off in us in some way as we're growing up. Perhaps we're told, for example, that anger is not a good thing, or perhaps we get the message that in some way it's not okay to ask for what we want. And so we for good reason, to protect ourselves and look after ourselves, we decide to push those parts of us into what we talk about, the shadow bag, which comes from Robert Blythe's work, based on Jung's ideas. And we put those parts of ourselves that are able to express clear anger, clear boundaries, clear decisions about things. Sometimes it shows up differently in all of us, but we may have put those things into what we call the shadow bag behind us. So they're there somewhere, but they're not fully enacted in the way that we're living our lives, and we may be dragging them along instead. And the idea of dragging them along, which comes from Robert Blythe's work, is that it's quite a heavy load to drag along all these parts of ourselves that in some way we've repressed and denied. So how does this relate to the boundary challenge? So the way in which I think it relates is that if we are wanting to have clearer boundaries and make clearer decisions in our lives, which is what clearer boundaries is really about, then we need this part of ourselves, our warrior part, to be effective and in action when we need it. And it doesn't mean suddenly getting angry all the time or suddenly saying no all the time, but we need to be able to call on this part of ourselves. And part of the thing that we did in the first video in this series, where we were doing the energetic practice of saying yes and no, and how we explored that, is about really feeling in our bodies that we actually do have that part of ourselves, the warrior part of ourselves, and it is there. And it's just about being able to access it more fully when we need it, when we want to draw boundaries in our lives. Now, I wanted just to explain, I'm going to give you something to do with that. I wanted just to explain how it might show up that you have a struggle with this. So shadow parts of us show up and trip us up in different ways, but one way that it might show up, which you could track for yourself, is that if you find yourself getting irritated with people who say no a lot, irritated with people who can activate this part of themselves, this warrior boundary piece, and say no, I'm not doing that, or that's too much for me, or whatever it is, or who express anger clearly. So I'm not talking about anger in the ragey sense where it's uncontrollable. I'm talking about anger when it's right, anger when it's justified. if you find yourself getting triggered and a bit annoyed by people in your life that are able to do that, it's a good sign that you have, the part of you that wants to do that is not being fully expressed right now. And I think that's a way that it very often shows up for us. Obviously, there are other ways that it also shows up, which is that, having leaky boundaries, not being clear, not saying no when we need to, and the frustration that we feel around that. But if you find yourself being a little bit triggered by people who are good at saying no and stating clearly what they want and need, it's a very good sign that this part of you, your warrior part, is not as fully expressed in your life as it could be. What am I going to invite you to do with that? I want to invite you to build on the physical yes and no, and to continue playing with that from the first video. If you haven't watched it and you're watching this one, go back to the day one and play with your physical expression of yes and no first. And then what I wanted to invite you to do today is to think about, okay, so warrior, it sounds, it may bring up all kinds of things for you when I talk about warrior, of what a warrior is, maybe someone fighting in a war or with a big shield or whatever that is. And those may not be things that you want to embody more in your life. So what I want to invite you to do is to think today about, okay, if I'm going to be a warrior for the things that I want in the world, and they are likely, I imagine, with people listening to this, to be, physically fighting, but a warrior for the things that I want, the things that I want to be focused on. What does that mean for me? What kind of qualities does my warrior, my inner warrior, you could think of it as, or the warrior I need with me, what kind of qualities does that warrior have that I want to embody? And if you're someone who likes to draw or paint, this is a time where you could get creative, or you can use words as well in a journal or on a piece of paper. Like, what does my inner warrior want to express about the focus and the clarity and the clear boundaries that I want to have in my life? And I'd love for you to explore that in whatever creative medium you find most effective. And perhaps if you've done a lot of writing already in this course and drawing or painting is something you tend to shy away from, perhaps this week you could switch and do something different and explore this idea of your inner warrior in a different creative medium. And perhaps if that doesn't appeal to you, then stick with writing, or just stick with writing down what those qualities that you want your inner warrior to be expressing in your life are, so that you can have this as a reminder to yourself. So whether you've done a painting or a drawing or some writing, or I want you to think about where you can place that as well. Where you can place that, and it might be that you just place the qualities or the essence of it somewhere that you're going to see it regularly, so that you can come back to this after the challenge is over and think about, okay, today I need my inner warrior. What are those qualities? And you see them represented there or written there, or somewhere in your notebook, or somewhere on your desk, on your wall. You're able to come back to that touchstone of what these qualities you want to express are, because I think so often we are carrying ideas around with us about what angry and clear and focused actually look like, that are based on things that aren't necessarily needing to be true for us in our lives. But we need this energy, we need this clarity, we need this warrior part of us that's true to our values. And so it may not be a warrior in the fighting sense, but this kind of energy that says, no, this is what I am focused on now, and I'm going this way. We need that energy in our lives. And so, I want to invite you to explore what that means for you, and keep a physical representation of that somewhere close to you, so that you can use it as a touchstone in the days to come. Okay, questions, please put them in the comments. Would be great if you'd like to share what you explore with us in the comments below. Remember, you can keep doing that whenever you're listening to this or watching this, sorry. It doesn't have to be on the 22nd of August when I'm sharing this. These videos are going to be available in our community for a while. So, yes, I think my screen might have just gone back, and if it did, I'm sorry about that. That was a mistake. But yeah, it's all about the shadow today, so the darkness is supporting us with this. And I wish you well with this exercise, and I'll talk to you again on Thursday.